In a serene village surrounded by the lush landscapes of East Africa, there lived a girl named Amara. With a radiant smile and a heart full of curiosity, Amara was the cherished daughter of a local craftsman and his wife. Her early years were filled with the joyful simplicity of village life, playing with her younger brother, Juma, and her friends, exploring the nearby woods, and helping her parents with chores around their modest home. Amara's laughter, often accompanied by Juma's giggles, was a common and welcome sound that echoed through the village, bringing smiles to the faces of all who heard it. As her 10th birthday approached, the village buzzed with preparations for a small celebration. Amara was excited, looking forward to the traditional dances and the special meal that her mother would make. It was to be a day of pure happiness, a reflection of the simple, untroubled life she led with her family and friends. Her parents watched her with pride, unaware of the changes that the future held, enjoying the moment and the joy their daughter brought into their lives. On the morning of her 10th birthday, Amara awoke with a start, her heart racing as if she had been running. The sun had just begun to paint the sky with strokes of orange and pink, and the village was still wrapped in the quiet of early dawn. Amara sat up, trying to shake off the remnants of a dream that felt far too real. In her dream, she had seen herself standing in the middle of the village square, surrounded by her friends and family, all staring up at the sky as a sudden, unseasonal storm began to gather. Thinking little of it at first, Amara dressed and stepped outside to help her mother prepare for the day's festivities. However, as the hours passed, the sky gradually began to darken. By midday, the same ominous clouds she had seen in her dream had formed, looming overhead. The villagers, who had been busy decorating and setting up, stopped and stared in disbelief. Amara felt a chill run down her spine as she realized that her dream was unfolding before her eyes. She watched, wide-eyed and silent, as the first drops of rain began to fall, just as they had in her vision. The villagers scrambled for shelter, murmuring among themselves about the strange turn of weather. Amara stood still, her mind racing with questions. After the unexpected rainstorm on her birthday, Amara's life quietly resumed its usual rhythm. The sudden downpour became a topic of conversation for a few days, then gradually faded into just another peculiar memory among the villagers. As for Amara, she initially felt a tinge of unease, the strange alignment between her dream and reality nagging at her. However, being so young and swept up in the aftermath of her birthday celebrations and daily chores, she didn't linger long on these thoughts. In the weeks that followed, Amara found herself more engrossed in her schoolwork and play, her mind occupied with the immediate joys and challenges of childhood. The vision, vivid and startling as it had been, slowly receded to the back of her mind. It seemed like an isolated incident, a curious fluke, and she mentioned it to no one, not wanting to make a fuss or sound fanciful. It wasn't until several months later that Amara experienced her second vision. This time, she foresaw an accidental fire starting near the village's communal barn. When the incident occurred exactly as she had seen, with the community working together to extinguish the flames before any significant damage could be done, the reality of her visions came crashing back into her consciousness. This second, accurate prediction jolted her, reviving the memory of her first vision and instilling a deep realization that these were not mere coincidences. With a mixture of apprehension and wonder, Amara began to acknowledge the extraordinary nature of her experiences, understanding that they were far more than just dreams. One quiet evening, as the sky turned a deep shade of twilight, Amara finally decided to share her secret with her parents. Gathering her courage, Amara began to speak, her voice small but earnest. "Mama, Papa, I need to tell you something strange." she started, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her dress. "I have been seeing things before they happen." Her parents listened, their expressions turning from casual interest to concern as Amara recounted her experiences. She told them about the unexpected rainstorm on her birthday and the fire near the communal barn, explaining how she had seen both events in vivid detail before they occurred. As she spoke, her voice grew steadier, empowered by the truth she was sharing. Her father furrowed his brow, initially skeptical of Amara's claims. "Are you sure, Amara? These could just be coincidences," he suggested gently, trying not to dismiss her outright, but clearly struggling to accept her words. Her mother, on the other hand, looked at Amara with a mixture of awe and fear. She knew her daughter to be honest and earnest, and the implications of what Amara was saying unsettled her. After a moment of silence, her mother reached out, taking Amara's hands in hers. "Amara, we believe you," she said softly, squeezing her hands reassuringly. "But this is something we don't fully understand. Such gifts are rare and can be both a blessing and a burden." Her voice was thick with emotion, torn between protecting her daughter and the fear of unknown forces at play. Her father nodded slowly, the initial skepticism giving way to a protective concern. "We need to be careful about who else knows about this, Amara. Not everyone might understand or react kindly," he added, glancing around as if to make sure no one else could hear. He proposed consulting Baba Femi, the village elder, known for his wisdom and understanding of matters beyond the ordinary. "He might know more about this gift of yours and how to guide you," he concluded, hoping to find a safe path forward for his daughter in the complexities of the spiritual and the unknown. One day, Amara's parents made their way to the outskirts where Baba Femi lived. As they approached the elder's humble abode, their hearts were heavy with worry, each step echoing their unease. Greeted with the customary warmth and hospitality, they sat across from Baba Femi. The elder's eyes immediately sensed the gravity of their visit. They explained their daughter's mysterious visions, careful to relay each detail without the interruption of her youthful interpretation. Baba Femi listened intently, his expression growing increasingly solemn. After a moment of contemplative silence, he spoke, his voice bearing the burden of his words. "This is a serious matter," he began. "Visions such as Amara's are rare and fraught with danger. They connect to the spiritual realm in ways that can bring blessing or great despair to our community." He paused, ensuring his next words were understood clearly. "The spirits may seek to use her as a conduit, which can be perilous. If her visions provoke unrest or threaten our way of life, you may have to make a difficult decision. It is paramount for the safety of the village that the spirits are not allowed to overtake her will or turn her gift against us." Amara's parents left the meeting with a heavy heart, interpreting Baba Femi's cautious words as a veiled suggestion that they might have to sever Amara's connection to the spiritual world permanently. The elder's warning about the potential danger of her gift resonated with a chilling clarity, leaving them to contemplate a course of action that they never thought imaginable. As they returned home, the air seemed denser, and their steps were laden with a dreadful resolution. As the weeks turned into months, the nature of Amara's visions began to shift, casting a darker shadow over her and her village. Initially subtle and benign, her glimpses into the future grew increasingly ominous and calamitous. Amara, now painfully aware of the implications of each vision, felt a growing dread with each passing day. Her visions evolved from simple forewarnings of natural events to more disturbing scenes of conflict and disaster. One night, she awoke from a vivid dream where she saw a fierce argument at the village well, which escalated into a violent clash between two families. Reluctantly, she shared her vision with her parents, hoping it might prevent the conflict. However, despite their interventions, the altercation unfolded, just as she had seen, leaving the community shaken and more suspicious of Amara's unsettling gift. With each vision that came to pass, the fear and suspicion directed at Amara intensified. Her parents watched helplessly as their once beloved daughter became the subject of wary glances and open hostility. The community's fear that Amara was somehow invoking these calamities through her visions seeded a deep unrest, turning her once peaceful life into a nexus of fear and accusation. Baba Femi's words haunted her parents, who began to truly fear that Amara's existence might be a threat to the balance of their village. The turning point came several months after Amara first revealed her gift to her parents. While her earlier visions were unsettling, they paled in comparison to the devastating vision she had one fateful evening. As dusk settled over the village and the air filled with the soft chirping of crickets, Amara suddenly grew quiet, her usual vibrant energy dimming into a somber stillness. Her parents, noticing her withdrawn state, pressed her to share what was troubling her. With a heavy heart, Amara recounted a vision that struck terror in their hearts. It was about Juma. In her vision, she saw a day like any other turn tragic when Juma, playing near the village's riverbank, slipped and was swept away by the strong currents. The vividness of the scene, with Juma's struggles and the subsequent futile rescue efforts, was horrifyingly clear. Amara described every detail, from the panic in Juma's eyes to the villagers' desperate attempts to save him, ending with the heart-wrenching sight of Juma's lifeless body being pulled from the river. Her parents listened in stunned silence, the weight of her words sinking deep. This was no distant calamity affecting unknown faces. This was their son, their little boy, whose life now hung on the precipice of Amara's prophetic visions. The distress was palpable, and for a moment they hoped against all odds that this vision would not come to pass. They decided to watch Juma closely, keeping him away from the river and any potential dangers. However, despite their precautions, tragedy struck. One afternoon, while playing outside, Juma sneaked away from his watchful parents. Drawn to the river by the lure of a floating toy boat, he ventured too close. The vision unfolded as Amara had seen. Juma slipped, and the currents, swollen from recent rains, were merciless. By the time the adults reached him, it was too late. Amara was devastated by her brother Juma's death. Consumed by guilt for foreseeing the tragedy without being able to prevent it, she blamed herself, haunted by the thought that her visions had somehow caused the accident. Her parents, equally heartbroken and terrified, couldn't help but connect his death to Amara's prophetic sight. In their anguished minds, what were once mere premonitions now seemed like sinister forces pulling calamity directly into their lives. This transformation in their understanding of her visions led them to a desperate conclusion. They believed that Amara's visions were not mere predictions, but actual catalysts for disaster. Under the cloak of a moonless night, Amara's parents led her to a secluded part of the forest. Amara followed quietly, holding her mother's hand tightly. Her parents' faces were etched with sorrow and resolve. They believed that by severing Amara's earthly ties, they might also sever the unseen, malevolent forces they feared were channeling through her visions into reality. Reaching a clearing deep within the woods, her father stopped and looked around, ensuring they were far enough from any prying eyes. The spot was circled by ancient trees, their branches stretching up to the sky like silent sentinels. Here, they believed, the earth held enough sacred power to complete their grim task and appease whatever spirits had entangled their daughter in this dreadful fate. With trembling hands and hearts heavier than the stones around them, they began what they thought was a ritual of release. Her mother laid out a small homemade altar from items they had brought. A few candles, which flickered in the gentle night breeze, and some wildflowers Amara loved. They asked Amara to lie down near the altar, telling her it was just a game, a special way to celebrate her gift. Confused but trusting, Amara complied, lying on the cold ground, looking up at the starless sky. Her father then produced a small vial of herbs mixed with river water, believed to purify and sever ties with the spirit world. He murmured a prayer for protection and forgiveness as he anointed her forehead, cheeks, and heart with the mixture. Then, with a final desperate plea for their family's safety, her mother took out a sharp, ceremonial knife, traditionally used in grave rituals meant to protect the living from the spirits of the unsettled dead. The act was swift. Her mother, tears streaming down her face, pressed the knife into Amara's heart. They wrapped her in a simple cloth, her body still and serene in the eerie moonlight, and left her there at the altar, the candles casting quivering shadows over her peaceful face. As they returned home, their steps were burdened with the weight of their deed, a secret pact forged in the quiet despair of night. They expected that the cycle of disasters would end with this extreme measure. However, to their profound shock and horror, Amara appeared at their doorstep the next morning, seemingly unscathed, her presence as real and solid as ever before. Her parents, faced with this inconceivable return, were struck not with relief, but with a deeper, more foreboding sense of dread. "Why did you leave me in the forest?" Amara asked, her voice tinged with confusion and hurt, oblivious to their intentions. Her return was not seen as a miracle or a sign of innocence, but rather as a terrifying affirmation of their fears, that she was not merely a child, but something much more. This event solidified in their minds the dire necessity of their actions. They were not swayed by doubt or misunderstanding. Instead, they became even more convinced that Amara was a danger to them all, a conduit for evil that must be stopped at all costs. Their determination hardened, driven by a dark certainty that the elders' warnings were true and that Amara's continued existence could only bring further disaster. This grim acceptance led them down a path of recurring resolve to carry out their decision, each incident reinforcing their belief in her sinister nature. That evening, under a sky darkened by thick, ominous clouds, Amara's parents led her to a deserted cliff overlooking the sea, a place steeped in legends of old spirits and ancient rites. Believing that the powerful spiritual energies of this location might succeed where their previous attempt had failed, they resolved to end her life by pushing her from the cliff, hoping the sea would carry away any trace of the deed and the spirits would accept her spirit. They performed a brief somber ritual, whispering prayers for forgiveness and intervention, asking the spirits to sever Amara's connection to the unseen forces. After the ritual, they led her to the edge of the cliff. They pushed her from the cliff. As Amara disappeared into the darkness below, the sound of the crashing waves mingled with the howling wind, carrying away their whispered apologies and deep sorrow. They returned home, emotionally spent and enveloped in a heavy silence, their minds troubled by the finality of what they had done, hoping against hope that this ordeal was over. However, just as before, Amara returned at dawn, walking back into the village as the first light crept over the horizon. Her appearance was calm, almost serene, as if untouched by the events of the night. Her parents, now thoroughly unnerved and overwhelmed by her resilience, realized that their understanding of her gift and its implications was profoundly inadequate. With each return, Amara seemed less their little girl and more a manifestation of something entirely beyond their comprehension, challenging everything they thought they knew about life and death. As Amara grows older, the village remains uneasy. Despite her parents' repeated attempts to end her life, each followed by her inexplicable return, their actions remain a closely guarded secret. The continuous cycle of death and return begins to take a toll on Amara. Each return sees her more distant, her spirit more enigmatic, as if each death and rebirth weaves more of the otherworldly into her being. The villagers notice changes, not just in the events she predicts, but in Amara herself. Her eyes, once vibrant with youth, now carry a depth that speaks of centuries. Whispered rumors start to circulate that she is not merely a child, but a reincarnation of an ancient spirit bound to the village by some unfathomable pact. Her parents grow increasingly isolated, their relationship with Amara strained and hollow. They stop trying to end her life, resigned to the belief that her existence is beyond their control. However, the distance between them and Amara only grows, as does the villagers' suspicion towards her. One day, a real calamity strikes. An epidemic sweeps through the village, one that Amara had foreseen but was unable to prevent, despite warning the villagers. The epidemic's toll is heavy, and the villagers' fear and grief ferment into anger. Blame falls on Amara, with many believing her visions are not mere predictions but catalysts of misfortune. The village elders make a fateful decision. They declare that Amara must be exiled, a decision that fractures the community, but one they see as necessary to protect the village from further harm. Amara leaves without protest, her expression unreadable. She walks into the wilderness, her figure disappearing into the mist that seems to rise to meet her. Her parents are left in silent devastation, mourning the daughter they never truly understood and the peace they could not restore. Years later, stories of a mysterious woman who travels between villages, a woman who can see what's to come, begin to circulate. These stories are tinged with both awe and fear, painting her as a spectral figure, part sage, part ghost, forever marked by her past and the unending cycle of her fate. As Amara's story ends, we're left questioning the line between love, fear, and the power of belief. Did her parents act out of protection, or were they driven by superstition? Could there have been another way? Share your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss how this story resonated with you. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel for more intriguing stories. Thank you for watching.